So thank you everybody for joining our presentation today, whether it's live or recorded. I want to introduce you today to Graphiant and our thought process around how we can use NaaS and use our NaaS solution to enable the network for customers and truly built for AI. So let's go ahead and get started with our presentation. I will be your host or co-host today. My name is Blaise Brady. I'm Director of Channel Sales in the Western region, and then joined today Dan Eisenhart, our Director of Sales Engineering. Let's go ahead and get started with our agenda today. What we're going to be covering is what is network as a service. That term has maybe become a little bit bastardized, if you will. It's depending on who you ask, you might get a different answer. So we'll talk about the definition that we follow, which also happens to be usually the widely accepted network or widely accepted official definition. Then we'll talk about who is Graphiant. What can we do to help customers and partners be more successful? We'll talk about the fact that what we're talking about today is a blue ocean opportunity. If you don't know what blue ocean opportunities are, it's the thought process between a wide open blue ocean where there's very little to no competition compared to a red ocean, and that red ocean is red because it's bleeding. It's everyone fighting over the same widget, and lowest price wins. And let's see how much I can reduce my compensation. Let's see how much I can reduce the cost and have a bleeding situation versus blue ocean being the ability for you to grow and think of ways to work with your customers differently than just competing over the same widget. And then last thing that we'll cover is why sell Graphiant? What can we do together for you to be more successful? All right. So I'm actually going to turn this over to Dan here for a second. And Dan, I'd love for you to help us explain what is network as a service.
Yeah, absolutely. Network as a service means, unfortunately, a lot of different things to a lot of different people now. Certainly has changed throughout time, recent time. People are using it for different outcomes. So you have network as a service company that are selling local area networks, right? You have network as a service company that are doing multi-use, multi-service ports that you can turn up and down. What network as service, as it was originally defined, and where Graphiant stands, is a network. In our case, it's a global network fabric that you log in and consume as needed or as a service. Connectivity from site to site, site to cloud, and in our case, with security and built for the AI age today, right? So you have to worry about tunnels. We use metadata across our network, consumption-based billing. Think of it like AWS. And then really we're what's next, right? You started with frame relay, came in with MPLS, and then you came in with SD-WAN, and then I'll kind of add SASE in the back end of that. And we're really what is next. So we're a service or a global security fabric network that you can plug in, like I said, the electric company, and consume as needed.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. To that point, I do have a question from a chat question came in, which is how does this compare, and is this a rip and replace for SD-WAN and MPLS, or is it what is it, I guess, what's a customer or a partner approach to this solution?
Yeah. It can. I'll use the terminology again. If you many things to different people, right? So it can augment what you currently have today. Say you were married to Palo Alto, Fortinet, Cisco for firewall capabilities, but you need that any connectivity, data in motion, post quantum encryption, and so on and so forth. We can add on to that. We can be absolute WAN replacement. So we can come in, and our software has next generation firewall capabilities. It has SD-WAN features. It has all that built into the service that you can just consume. So it is just a software out there, and it's a network credit, kind of like the cloud providers do. You buy a token. That token equates to bandwidth. So we can work in conjunction with what the customer has today and solve for specific needs, or we can be that absolutely full stack WAN replacement for them with firewall, SD-WAN, cloud.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So let's now talk about the opportunity, right? We've talked about what is NaaS. Let's talk about what the opportunity is in the marketplace. So you can see here the statistics from research organizations like Research and Marketics, Corridor Intelligence, Procedure Research, and then Newswire Services. And we collaborated this information to show you that this market is ready today, right? This is not a future conversation. This is not a, hey, start planting the seed now and be ready to capitalize a year or 2 years from now. This is the opportunity to capitalize today. And like I said, it's still a blue ocean opportunity, meaning customers are not necessarily realizing what network as a service can do for them. Now, the good news is, or bad news, depending on where you are on this spectrum of working with us, I just spoke with an advisor literally right before this call where a customer, a large global customer, has 7 disparate networks. Let me say that again. 7 disparate networks, and they're looking to collaborate those networks or consolidate those networks into one solution. The reality is, network as a service is the only solution that can do that, right? And yes, of course, I want them to work with Graphiant, and we have an amazing capabilities to deliver. But network as a service is the only thing that's going to deliver the promise that that customer is looking to accomplish by streamlining operations, by driving the right outcomes, by giving them the control at their fingertips, and typically reducing their cost, right? So it's a win-win-win across the board. And you can see here, this market is ready to explode. It's ready to pop. So who is Graphiant, right? We've talked a little bit about what is network as a service. We've talked a little bit the market out there. Let's talk about who is Graphiant for a second. So I'll start, and then Dan, I'll ask you to chime in with some additional color here. And what I'm going to start with is a story about me, right? And I'm going to make this very selfish for a second, and turn the mirror back on myself and share why I came to Graphiant. Now, here's a little history about me. For those of you who don't know me, I worked at Quest Communications. I worked at CenturyLink. I worked at Level 3. I worked at TW Telecom. I worked at Charter Cable. I've worked in a lot of different networking companies. I worked at GTT. And I worked always with sort of that traditional network approach. And not that any of those companies are doing anything wrong, but throughout my history, I didn't know that network as a service was really available. I always thought it was the unicorn. And before I joined Graphiant, I thought it was still potentially a unicorn. When I started evaluating my decision to join Graphiant, I started asking questions of AI and other tools. What is network as a service? Who is Graphiant? What differentiates them from other network as a service providers? And it really compelled me to join. And I was extremely skeptical, right? I was like, oh, this sounds way too good to be true. But when I found out who was our founder, when I found out who backs the company, when I found out how we have our architecture around a stateless, tunnelless, core, and the fact that we're consumption built and the customer can buy our solution on the marketplaces that they're already interacting with today, I realized this was no longer a unicorn. It was just an amazing thoroughbred, right? That it has the capability, the technology, and the solution to actually deliver. So Dan, I'd love for you to chime in. What is your big differentiators around the way Graphiant does it?
Yeah, absolutely. And same as you, Blaise. I really learned a lot about the company before coming over. Found out about the founder, Khalid Reza. As he started the company, he brought some different disciplines in with him, like people from Meta, Netflix, Disney streaming, that understand data in motion. And the story was compelling in a way that it's different, right? So you have a different story to be able to tell your customers. Everybody's, for the most part, is telling them the same story in different ways, trying to get their attention in different ways of how you differentiate from the other SD-WAN guy or the other CLEC or the other cable co, right? How do you do differently, right? And that usually comes down to customer service and process, right? So now you can come in and tell a different story of a network. Why is it different? So what's the big deal about having people from Meta, Netflix, Disney streaming? Because that understanding data in motion, who produces data, who consumes that data, the stateless core. You could be the best hacker in the world. You come in and access our core, there's no useful information because as we do our overlays through the network, we use metadata and kind of like similar to MPLS tagging in our network because we're able to separate the data plane from the control plane. Only the producer of the data and the consumer of the data ever know what that key is in order to decrypt that data. So there is no state that even Graphiant doesn't know what that key is that's been generated. So there's never any encrypt, decrypt across our network. So there's no state information that's part of our network for anybody to be able to determine from a hack perspective what the intent of that data is, right? So it's also faster from that perspective. So we talked about the end-to-end encryption, the stateless core, to any connectivity. So we have that global network security fabric. You connect over your existing internet connections, get our software at your edge. The software connects back to our core. So whether you're going from edge to edge to cloud, cloud to cloud, or you're a born in the cloud company, right? That relies on those cloud providers for their networking. We can take that networking out of the cloud providers, let them do their store and compute, and let Graphiant do that because we're pre-plumbed into those environments. And then a single pane of glass. So you have observability, right? So think of this as like your Kentech, your Thousand Eyes, your Datadogs, being able to see all that data under a single pane of glass. What's going on with the edge equipment? What's going on with the software? Who's produced data? Who's consumed that data? Being able to control that data, create a data sovereign network. A few clicks of a button, say it's a healthcare customer, a few clicks of a button, you can create a micro-segmented network to create that data sovereignty for HIPAA, or you have somebody in GDPR. So absolute control, absolute visibility of your data in motion. So it is a different story. It's very, very compelling to clients.
I'm glad you said that, Dan. A question came in while we were talking. I'm actually going to hold it for like 2 slides, but I'll plant the seed now for those of you that are viewing around sort of that customer reaction or customer scenario. So it's a question about ideal customer fit and what are customers saying. So chew on that as we go through like 2 more slides, then I'll ask you to chime in a minute. All right. So the Graphiant difference. Dan already talked about this a little bit. I think I maybe mentioned this before. If I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But here's the general thought process, right? MPLS was originally, conceived and presented in the 90s, right? The 1990s, right? We're talking 30 plus years ago. SD-WAN hit the market in 2012, right? But still, 12 plus years ago, Graphiant Network as a Service is today, right? So Dan, this is where I'm going to ask you to chime in a little bit. When you've talked with customers, so 2 questions. Who is our ideal customer? And 2, when you've spoken to customers that have MPLS or have SD-WAN, what's their reaction to Graphiant?
Yeah. So I'll even add a little bit further from the observability perspective, but their view of Graphiant is they understand that it is what's next, right? So they get the feeling and the simplicity of the MPLS. They get the visibility and utilization of multiple circuits and application control of SD-WAN, all built into our platform that is easily consumable, right? Obviously, this scenario very rarely happens, but it has happened 1 or 2 times since I've been here, is the ease of deployment, right? We've had clients where we've got on a phone call in the morning with an agent that says, oh, I have a customer that's been dying for something like this. Get on the call by 11 or noon that same day, and the customer's up and operational with a few sites and cloud connectivity by that evening, right? With the control, visibility, and security, the post-quantum, right? We didn't talk about that much. We're built for post-quantum encryption today. Click of the button at the network layer, globally, right? The ability to A, get from that edge to the cloud, B, have the ability to replace or replace their MPLS and get to an SD-WAN, or to replace their licensing cost on their SD-WAN with Graphiant, who has no licensing cost or per site fee. And then the enhancement of the visibility, control, and the security, it really hits home with clients today.
Yeah. So let me then paraphrase that back. Is it safe to say that our ideal customer print is basically mid-market and enterprise? So basically, everybody but SMB would be an ideal fit for us?
Yeah. Tony's Pizza Shop on the corner, not a good fit. There is we have a one-site client. Don't get me wrong, we have a client that has 1 site, and what they do is they supply, I forget exactly what it is, something to grocery stores, but they only have 1 site. However, they have 3,000 grocery stores that rely on their information. So we have this what we call business-to-business data exchange, which I believe we'll talk about more in a little bit. That is a new way of handling VPN. So this client was handling 3, 4, 5,000 VPNs, right, on his network, we were able to come in and use the Graphiant network core and the Graphiant gateways to provide that business to business data exchange that made it audible, consumable. They can share just the application as opposed to sharing big networks and firewall services. So yes, from an SMB who just needs really internet access and maybe swipe a credit card, doesn't make a lot of sense. But a single site that had need multiple connectivities into their site to be able to do that, we would be a good fit there. But mid-enterprise, larger enterprise customers, all the way up to your Fortune 500, Fortune 50 type clients, and even into carriers. There's carriers that are buying our services today because they can't build what we have in place.
I'm glad you mentioned that. For all the partners and advisors out there that are hungry and willing to work with us, the only customers that are off limits are existing customers, right? So if you have an amazing relationship with a data center provider, if you have a relationship with a voice provider, like any type of solution, we have customers today that I'm not at liberty to share their logo, but probably a data center solution that you sell to your customers, also a customer of us. Voice solutions that either you use yourself or your customers use, also a customer of ours, right? And the good news is the partners that brought those customers to us are now getting paid commission on selling to a supplier that they only had that one-way relationship before.
And if I may add to that, Blaise, carriers as well. We can't name them here, but one of the biggest, probably three or four of the six largest carriers out there are utilizing Graphiant's technology on their backbone, whether it be for network as a service, we become their SaaS for their NaaS, or whether it is for our post-quantum encryption. You have the ability to, if you have the relationship with those large carriers, to sell this service to them, right? So it is a win-win for everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. All right. So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the why. We've talked about the what, right? What is network as a service? It is that built in the cloud, born in the cloud capability that gives security, flexibility, visibility, control, all to the customer. The how, the Graphiant how, the fact that we're post-quantum encrypted, the fact that we're tunnelless and stateless, and bring a unique technology to the market is the great how. But now let's talk about the why, right? And maybe I'm backwards. Maybe we should start with why, but I'm going to try to hit this home with the why. Number one, the timing is right. The timing is now. This is a blue ocean opportunity. There is not a dogfight out there that if you're bringing network as a service, if you're bringing Graphiant to your customers, they're going to ask you questions that they've never been asked before. And I'll let you know right now, we're in the enablement business. Me and my peers, we are willing and definitely capable to help craft introduction emails back to your customers or prospects. I do it literally every single day. I'll talk to a partner. I'll say, okay, who's the customer? What's their pain points? Here's a PDF you can share with them. And here's how I would introduce Graphiant and network as service to them. And it's not perfect. I don't have a 100% close ratio, but we have a really good rate of return on those prospects saying, yes, introduce me to Graphiant, or tell me more. Can I get on a demo call with one of your engineers? The consumption-based model is perfect for today's world. The flexibility of only paying for what you use. No longer the customer is paying for licensing. No longer is the customer paying for services they're not actually using. This scales with them. Additionally, why Graphiant? This infrastructure was built on AI. We're not a big, clunky carrier that's trying to retrofit the network. This was purpose-built for network as a service. We are 100% channel focused. We do not have a direct sales force at all. As a matter of fact, at probably, maybe once a week, or at least once every 2 weeks, I'm reaching out to partners and saying, hey, I have a lead for you. I have a customer or a prospect that's interested in Graphiant, and there's no partner assigned today. I need to give this lead to you to help us close this deal. And then last but not least, our pedigree speaks for itself. We have investment from Sequoia, Khalid Raza, one of the co-founders of Eptela. It's a strong pedigree. We have an amazing customer success team. We have customers that are happy and referenceable. And this is truly an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself in the market. So what is next, Blaise? How do we connect with you? How do we engage? We have the proven outcomes. Let's connect. Let's talk. There's a 3-step process here that I'd love for you to set up with. Number one, connect with me or one of my peers, right? You can see our contact information on there. Or if you don't know who to reach out to, just go to sales@graphiant.com. That'll go to our distro, and we will pick up and respond to you in a very timely fashion. Step 2, let's get on a demo call with either Dan or one of our other engineers and walk through the platform, show you what it looks like. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, right? Where the rubber really meets the road is whenever we get on a call with one of your customers or prospects. Dan, explain to me, what is that light bulb moment for customers that I know you've seen 100 times?
Yeah. Once they see the platform, it definitely makes a lot of sense. The customers are getting it, right? So we go through and talk about our capabilities, talk about, repeat myself again, just the ability to turn things up same day if needed, but let's be realistic. They'll have it up and operational in weeks instead of months, right? We like to say, be able to deploy it to the sites. The fact that there is no per site fee, right? There's no licensing fee. So you're not buying a large license only because you have large connectivity at a site. The fact that the way we bill and the way we charge is only based off of traffic that ingresses into our network for privately. Local internet drain is not charged, but yet from a malware perspective, from an application perspective, you still have full visibility of your traffic, whether it's coming across our core, consuming those network credits, or whether it's going directly out to the internet, which does not consume network credits. You get full visibility and control of that data as it happens. The post-quantum encryption story, right? Harvest now, decrypt later. It's happening today. It's not happening tomorrow. If you read a lot of the higher-end networking magazines, what are the CISOs, CIOs are talking about is data sovereignty, which we solve today by 3 clicks of a button, and post-quantum encryption. And as far as we know right now, at scale, at the network layer, at a click of a button, right now we're the only ones able to do that, right? And there's no additional charge for that. The fact that our SD-WAN, our firewall capabilities, our business-to-business data exchange, our cloud connectivity is no additional charge. It's just a feature on the network that you consume. I'm sure you have it up here between a deployment is from a cloud connectivity perspective. Anybody who's cloud native, we take that networking out of the cloud, bring it into our network in excess of 40, sometimes 50% savings to the client, and the agent gets paid on that, right? Which is different than today because you typically don't get paid on that cloud networking service. That is a big upside. And there is a little trepidation. It's like, oh, well, I need predictable cost. I need to understand what's going on. I don't want to consume and all of a sudden be charged for that. So it's not like your old time long distance carrier, right? How much long distance you use, you pay. It's the bandwidth that is across our core that you can consume. And typically, if the client doesn't understand that, you will in our network from our observability perspective. But we usually 10 to maybe 15% of your internet speeds at the site is typically your private traffic that comes over that core. But in the long run, we can save easily 50 through 75% savings over what you're doing from a traditional WAN perspective today. That really hits home for those clients.
Yeah, Dan, I don't normally like to talk about price, but when it's disruptive, right? Whenever we are making truly next gen technology available to the masses, it's worth talking about, right? This type of solution is definitely bought by banks, bought by Fortune 50 customers that are our customers today. But this is also a solution you can deploy with any mid-market customer and up, right? So last but not least, reach out to us. Let's talk. You can scan this QR code. It'll take you to a calendar tool. You can get some time with us. Send us an email, phone us, smoke signals, however you want to get a hold of us. Please reach out. And I appreciate your time today, Dan. I appreciate everybody who joined us today. Thank you so much and have a great day.